I got into filmmaking 1950, 52, I believe. I don't know exactly. I forgot. But by mistake is everything in my life. What happened is I made a film about my experiences coming to America, escaping from communist Bulgaria, and then it followed naturally as an independent producer that I follow suit. In those days, the majors were controlling the theaters, although there was some legal distinction that they cannot own the theaters, but the old saying was, if you don't like us, go and show it to the supermarket, show the AMP. So I decided to go into the film business. Like everything else, I didn't have the money to go. I had some backers, and I put the first picture together, Journey to Freedom, for Republic Pictures. And from then, it was easier. But I was acting as a producer, as a writer, not as a director. Because I was in LA. In LA, the whole city is in the movie industry. If you are in Milwaukee, you make beer. If you are in Detroit, you make cars. So why not make movies? What is so special about movies? There are all kinds of people that go to school, they're spending thousands of dollars, and they don't know nothing. Excuse me. They don't know anything. So you have to have the instinct. I watched lots of movies. True, there's lots of technical aspects of filmmaking. But like everything else, like driving a car, 90% is common sense and 10% is the technical thing. The same thing with movies. I have a good cameraman. I don't shoot. I'm not a cameraman. I have a good sound man. I'm not a sound man. So why should I go and learn how to be a cameraman or to be a sound man? I have the best. Those are the people that dedicated their lives to their profession. Those are the specialists. But the feeling is the director's media is the feeling which you have about. And feelings you cannot learn by numbers. So that's how I got in there. Orgy of the Dead was originally called The Ghoulies, I believe, or something like that thing. Eddie, Ed Wood, he already had the script. I understand he had it for a long, long time. And when I decided to go into the so-called, quote-unquote, sex exploitation market, I knew Eddie before, and he said he had the script, so I said, okay, let's make it. Now, there were a couple ideas which I had, and those ideas were after I watched Goldfinger, the film Goldfinger. I decided it would be good to put a sequence of the Golden Girl. I told that thing to Eddie, he wrote it down. Then I went to a Hawaiian place on Hollywood Boulevard, and I saw when the Hawaiian girls were dancing with the lights on and the volcanoes and everything. So I told that thing to Eddie, and he wrote the sequence of the Hawaiian girl with the snakes and so on and so forth. But I did not write Orgy of the Dead. That's Eddie's. Bill Thompson was my cameraman on Journey to Freedom. And I understand later on I found out that Bill Thompson was also a director of photography for Eddie Wood. So Bill says, I know a nice guy your age, which you guys should meet together, and it could be beneficial for each other then. And he arranged for the meeting with Eddie. I don't know who called who. It's been such a long time ago. But we got in touch, and we arranged to meet for lunch. At that time, the Brown Derby was the in place for young filmmakers, and it was an in place, period. I was impressed with the restaurant, so I used to go there quite often. So I arranged with Eddie to meet him there. So because I never met Eddie. He doesn't know how I look like, and I didn't know how he looks like. So we arranged to meet for lunch. So I told the maitre d', I said, listen, I'm expecting a gentleman. He's going to ask for me. I'll be waiting for him at the bar. So after a while, the maitre d' walks in and with a smirk in his face, and he says, Mr. Apostolof, your date is here. So I look around and I said, holy smoke, what's going on here? And he was there sitting in drag with white boots, a red skirt, mini skirt at that time, and white Angora sweater with phony mammal glands underneath, a mustache, a 3-day-old beard, and looking sheepish at me, I said, hi. So I said, hi. At that time, I wanted to have something to happen to me so that I just sink. But I contained my composure, and we had a couple of drinks, we started talking, and we became friends. I have never seen a film which Eddie made. Even later on, he insisted on showing me. I was not interested.
Why not?
Because I was always honest with Eddie. I heard about his films. After I spoke with Eddie for many, many days, many, many times about filmmaking, I knew what to expect. With all due respect to Eddie, Eddie was a good writer, but as a director, I didn't know he knew what he was doing. He had no concept. So I didn't want to insult him because I knew when I say, how do you like my film? And I didn't want to insult him and tell, well, it's good, bad, or indifferent. Out of respect for him, I didn't want to do it. Eddie is a likable guy, and I had a soft spot for the poor guy. He was always broke, always something happened, and he was drinking like hell. So he was a likable guy, and he was also a talented man. But his talent was definitely not in direction. His talent was in writing. He was the fastest typist that I ever encountered in my life. Sometimes I dictate to him, and he'll stop. And I said, what's going on, Papi? And he said, well, I'm finished. He was typing faster than I can talk, and I can talk real fast. What attracted me to Orgy of the Dead was that it was all dances. There were no body contacts, and it was relatively very, very inexpensive. I like the idea that I didn't have to build so many sets or anything like that, which is the conventional thing. No bodily contact, therefore I felt safe in the
in the morals department.
In the moral department, yeah, with the authorities, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to go for it. Eddie was so happy; he was elated, you know. I also made Eddie as the production manager of the company to shoot it, and he went ape. He was so happy to be back, because he really enjoyed the movie life, the movie business, anything about movies. He was a movie-struck man. The human body is a beautiful body, but it's not perfect body. The Greeks, sculptors and painters tried to give the perfect body and dimension and so on and so forth. But that is not the case. So I try to give what you see is what you get. Different types of bodies like that. Some with bigger mammal glands or ticket cells, as I call them. Some with smaller, long legs, short legs, blondes, brunettes, etc., etc. Redheads, let's not forget. So in casting, I try to appease to the interest and to the likes and dislikes, shall I say, to the likes of my audience. So that's why. I needed some music, obviously, because we recorded all those things with not the original music which you see in the pictures. That was not what was in the playback. The playback was, let's say, a foxtrot, a tango, a boogie boogie, a samba, whatever the case may be. But they were just pieces of music. All I needed was the rhythm. Now, once that thing was finished, I got in touch with a very, very talented music director, Jaime Mendoza Nava. And I'm calling Mendoza Nava because Jaime likes that thing because that's his father's name. And he comes from Chile. And he always likes to be called Jaime Mendoza Nava. So, Jaime, if you see this thing, here's to you, my friend. Now, Jaime used to be, I understand, he was being from Chile. He was also the director of the symphony orchestra over there. And now he's in the States, or I don't know if he's still, but he was in the States. And I hired him to score the whole picture. So Jaime composed music. He put all the rhythm, etc., etc. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you something very interesting. The Indian girl dance, this chanting, hey, yours truly. I was in the mix section, so everybody, the musicians were yelling, hey, including me, to make it look good. And he scored it. He did a very, very good job. Jaime scored many, many other pictures after that for me. Don't be too nice. Don't be too nice as a director. Don't do things the way you know should not be done. Don't be intimidated. You have something in mind? Remember, a director is the most important person in my book in making films, because a writer imagines it, an actor acts. But it's the imagination of the director that puts that magic of camera, of story, of actors, of sound. It makes it happen. Therefore, whatever the vision is of the director should be followed, and most of the time it's being followed by the rest of the crew, which is very, very important. A film is a director's media. Theater is a writer's media. You don't have to explain 20 times, I love you, I love you, I love you. Show a close-up of the people involved, and you know that there is love. The camera enables us to come as close as we possibly can, very intimate. Whereby the theater, you're sitting in the balcony 20, 30, 50 feet, 100 feet away. So you have to shout, I love you, I love you, I love you. Now, you have to maintain also, we're having, in film, it's called a motion picture. We are moving, so there have to be movement. That movement has to be done simultaneously sometimes between the camera and the actors. And sometimes it is very difficult because it has to be well coordinated, it has to be well executed, and that creates problems. But a camera, it's a moving picture. A camera should move as well as the action. A film should be pre-planned. Like every good food, you have to have the ingredients. Don't depend on luck. I've seen too many directors that spend hours and hours and hours on something which I know done well they will not use. Prime example, the master shot. You go in the master shot, now you know you're gonna intercut within the master shot. You know you're gonna start punching in close-ups and so on and so forth. So why go through 15 minutes, 5, 10 minutes, whatever the case may be, for a master shot, and wear out everybody? When you know done well, you're gonna cut in. So I do talk quite a bit during the giving them direction, and I told them before, if you make a mistake, unless I stop you, continue, because I'm gonna cover that thing with a close-up. That's for openness. But a film should be pre-planned. I don't sit down and draw a storyboard, but I know exactly what I want. I know exactly how I'm going to open that shot, and I know exactly how I'm going to close it. And that's very important, because if you cannot match it with the preceding shot or the shot that's following, then it's not worth it. An example, you cannot show the left hand up and then you see later on it's down, or you can cross the line because the characters will be reversed. So all those things, that's what I said by cutting. You cannot cross the line, that's ridiculous. So you have to pre-plan everything. Don't expect any surprises. As a director, I know exactly what I have, and I know exactly what I want to have. Therefore, I convey that thing to my crew, and with their effort and my effort, we do it. When I first read Orgy of the Dead, I was concerned with the aspects of the dances and so on and so forth. I didn't pay very much attention to the dialogue until later on, because I read it and read it and read it and read it 10,000 times. When I remember, I got stuck on one line, torture, it pleasures me. I said, for heaven's sake, A, it's improper English. B, who on earth is going to talk like that? But that was typical dialogue of Eddie, and then so on and so forth. But I was not aware of the style. Now I know. I can read a screenplay, and it can be written by Shakespeare. Somebody can put that thing on the title, and they're going to say, well, that's Eddie. Now, what are some of the idiosyncrasies, in a good sense of the word? For instance, Ed will always, the lead, always going to be wearing an Angora sweater. The other thing, that is definitely Eddie. And they engaged in a tongue-smashing, slashing kiss. That's Eddie. So it says Shakespeare. I said, no, that's Eddie. So little things like that. And I didn't pay particular attention in Orgy of the Dead, though, to be very frank with you. Orgy of the Dead Part 2, The New Generation, I call it. That's the title. In a sense, I'm picking up a new concept. The new concept is this one. There were lots of unanswered questions on Orgy of the Dead number 1, or Orgy of the Dead. Now, for instance, what was the relationship between the mummy and the wolfman? Who were they? What were they? So I'm explaining that in Orgy of the Dead Part 2. It's a very cute scene. What was the relationship of some of the other characters between the Black Ghoul and the Emperor of Darkness? Who were they? I'm explaining that. Sometimes they're very loving, very accommodating to each other. Sometimes they're bitchy. And I'm explaining that thing, not explaining, but I'm showing what their life was, who they were. They were not as bad as people might think they were. There might be surprises. Then at the end, what has happened to the original Shirley and Bob? Do they dance for the audience? Do they entertain the emperor like the rest of them? Or did they go somewhere else? Those are also answered. So Orgy of the Dead is showing, is very, very futuristic. Very futuristic. It takes place in the year of 3000 or something, 2800. Number 2, correct. Orgy of the Dead 2. It's very futuristic. The whole thing is in the future. I can go the other direction now. I can show some other places, which obviously will not do. I never done it, and I refuse to do it, and I'm not going to do it, period. But there's going to be some substitution. You don't have to show breast, for heaven's sake, all the time. You get sick and tired of it. Everything in excess is not good. Do it, but don't overdo it. And believe me, there are going to be lots of surprises in Orgy of the Dead Part 2 because, as I said before, you don't have to depend only on the mammal glands and the ticket sellers. I believe that the Orgy of the Dead Part 2 will have something more to offer than only the mammal glands and the ticket sellers. Okay?